Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to do something a little bit different, yet still in the frame of Total War. You see, recently a mod dropped on the workshop for Total War Warhammer 3 called TW Millennium Modern Warfare, which introduces a more modern style weaponry to Total War Warhammer 3. For the purpose of this video, we will refer to them to Deathcore of Krieg, because this video is going to be centered around a possible Total War Warhammer 40k. Also, I just don't like going too much onto historical aspects because, well, I'm a Warhammer channel. It's kind of obvious. Anyways, the units that you can see on screen right now are the units that were added by this mod, and yeah, it's guns, and even more guns. Hell, there's even some bigger ones too. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because anytime I've mentioned the possibility of a Total War Warhammer 40k, which, let's be honest, would be a lot of money for Creative Assembly and Games Workshop, everyone kind of said, well, it wouldn't work with the Total War format, it would work more with Companies of Heroes, it just doesn't fit with Total War. And the main argument was combat. Combat being so heavily focused on ranged weaponry, with people seeming to forget that we've had some range-focused Total War games before, like Empire. But yes, Warhammer 40k would be a tad more complicated because you need to start bringing in bigger guns than just cannons. So this mod introduces some artillery pieces, it introduces a few different things, and it kind of makes my points come across. You can see that there's so many different types of units, and if you do want to check it out for yourself, because I'm not going to go on for the unit stats, this isn't the purpose of this video, it's going to be linked in the description below. But what I want to do is talk about this as I had a few hours to play around and see in a simulation, in a sense, how this could work for Total War Warhammer 40k. This would be the Imperial Guard, the Deathcore of Krieg, versus the Demons of Khorne. Keep in mind that obviously this is a mod, so balancing does come into play. It's not going to be that balanced, but yeah, it's actually quite interesting. So the Khornate Demons have no range. I've gone for a typical loadout that you'd expect. Sometimes you'd bring a skull cannon, but I wanted to see how they do with just melee. The Demons of Khorne having a decent physical resistance would also be quite beneficial here, and I've gone for a pretty big horde of demons, so the idea is just to see how these so-called guardsmen would fare. And it wasn't too bad. Again, balancing is a big thing here, so the guardsmen are themselves a little overtuned. Conscripts should not be able to do that much damage, I'd say, but yeah, I'm not here to criticize the mod, I'm here to see a possible simulation about it. And yeah, you know, you can see all the demons charging in, doing their usual thing. They've got no range, they're just coming in to do as much damage as possible. I've got some snipers, I've got some rifle companies, I've got some flamers, I've got some artillery just to provide a little bit of support, and I gave myself the best possible scenario where I was on top of a hill where really the Deathcore of Krieg just kind of charge in and do as much damage as possible. But this is playing as more of a traditional guardsman, you know, having some fire support, having some terrain around. I didn't use the abilities like spawning in the trenches and all that, but that's mainly because Total War AI doesn't know how to deal with that, so they just go for it directly, like if it is a unit to attack. And, well, yeah, that's because if something like this were to happen in the future, the AI would have to be played around with. It's the same thing as how the AI is so drastically different when it comes to Warhammer than it is for the historicals. And as you can see, you know, the demons will come in, they'll do as much damage as they can, but they will get sniped out. This isn't a custom battle, by the way, so there's no modifiers, there's no tech tree, there's nothing like that, there's no lord bonuses. But despite the Demons of Khorne being absolutely destroyed, I think this was enough to actually convince me. You see, the unit sizes were good. You know, you had 120 for the conscripts, then you had the rifle company with 90, the special units with 45. This works for guardsmen. This works really, really well for guardsmen. Obviously, for Space Marines, they'd be smaller, but yeah, it already gives me an idea on how things could actually work. And even with a overwhelming amount of firepower, they still were able to do a decent amount of damage. You can see here that some of my units were almost destroyed. Some of them did start routing too, which I think is quite impressive. And the fact is that you have to see it this way, right? Like balancing again, and I know I'm being annoying with that, but it has to be said, they'd need a bit more physical resistance for the demons just to be able to kind of balance this out proper. But even then, they were able to get up close, they were able to do a decent amount of damage, and I think that's something that just kind of shows that this would work well. But it's not fair to fight against Khorne, as Khorne is kind of weak. They even suffer a little bit for it in certain bits of the tabletop for 9th edition, though seeing as creators are now dropping their early access battle reports for the new 9th edition codex for the Demons of Chaos, it looks like they're a lot better. But let's have a more traditional feel, right? Let's go for Demons Undivided. A healthy mix of some Nurgle stuff, some Cornate stuff, and even some Tzeentchian stuff with any undivided demon prints. This means that they've got durability, they've got strength, and they've also got some range to fight against us too. And again, keep in mind this is a custom battle, this doesn't have anything to do with any bonuses that you'd get from leveling up lords and all that type of stuff. However, you know, they're going to be trying to flank around. This is kind of expected. This is, you know, the usual Total War stuff with the AI. They're going to start firing at me as soon as they get into range. They've got the Nurgle stuff just getting closer and closer. Honestly, it's not too bad. Coming in with a quick edit here, I've just realized there's no Cornate stuff, but rather some Sineshi chariots, which should be able to do a bit more damage on my troops if they are able to get a flank charge. And we're peppering them pretty hard. Yep, that's expected. We've got pretty much all range against them, and ranged armies are usually quite strong, depending on what you use them for, but they're getting closer. And basically what's getting destroyed is nothing of too importance. As you'll start to see, they'll get closer and closer, and they'll start actually doing damage, which is quite interesting. Again, I think that maybe some things are a bit overtuned, but in general, you can see that the Lord is going to do a lot of damage to my Lord, he's going to do a lot of damage to the artillery pieces. Some of my troops are going to get really damaged, and I mean like really damaged. The rifle company is going to start to suffer a lot as everything just gets there and starts demolishing them. I think the flamers themselves are the ones that are pretty much saving the day because their damage modifiers are just that good. If I wouldn't have had the flamers here, I think that the game would have gone a lot more different. Like, I could have legitimately lost this, and that's what I was kind of hoping for, because you can already see the damage output, especially once you start losing ammo, starts reducing drastically because, well, you're fighting with bayonets and not with bullets, so yeah, and you can see that some of my troops are breaking, some of them are really suffering against the demons. It keeps it pretty even, really. And even then, if people want to say that the flamers are too overpowered and this is why Warhammer 40k wouldn't work, I mean, we have flamers in fantasy, we have them with the Skaven, and they're just as strong too, so it's all about just getting a decent vantage point and getting a good shot. So honestly, after playing around with a few hours, I honestly think that this is possible. I think, obviously, this is more pushing towards a World War I, World War II theme, but we all kind of want a 40k one, don't we? We all want a 40k Total War, and we can see that range versus melee against demons and stuff, which is expected, isn't going to be too tough. Then if we take into account stuff like, say, for example, Space Marines, they'll be in smaller numbers, they'll also have higher armor too, so they'll be able to be a bit more durable. I've seen a lot of arguments with, say, for example, the thing about single entity tanks, like, well, you know, Land Raider, stuff like that. And we have single entities in game that do have firepower, like for example steam tanks. They wouldn't be firing as quickly, but it's already there. You know, we've already got the technology for it. It's just about changing around some ammo values, some armor values, and yeah, I think it works. I think the combat-wise works. The battle itself was relatively even. The balance of power stayed around the middle for a long time. Obviously, as I started doing more damage with the flamers, yeah, you know, it fell to my favor, but you can see the damage output. Look at all the damage that has been done to me at this point. It's relatively good for a melee-based army, mostly melee-based army, I must say. They were able to do quite a decent amount of damage to me, and yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that CA and GW have considered it, but this is something that just kind of pushes it more. I needed to see something in action, and yes, this isn't in action, but this is as close as we'll get, I guess. But it definitely makes me a lot more hopeful that we will eventually get a Total War Warhammer 40k in the future. I'm not saying anytime soon, because, yeah, clearly we need historical games to come out first. We need Medieval 3, we need whatever, you know, because these things are important for the core fan base, and obviously they should not be ignored, but in the future, say maybe 5 years down the line, after Warhammer Fantasy is completely done, why not a Total War Warhammer 40k? If the relationship between GW and CA is as good as it seems, well, you know, why not? Why not at least attempt it? And this is a good way. I think Warhammer Fantasy kind of proved that they can break the mold every now and then and try something different. Obviously, Empire also did that with a lot of melee, but mostly majority range fighting. So you've got a little bit of everything there. So why not focus it mostly on range than anything else? Now, yes, some people would be saying, well, how would the map work? Would it just be one planet? And that doesn't really make sense given the lore of 40k. And no, what it would easily be is that the map would be the actual galaxy itself. The regions and provinces would act as a system of planets. and the outside is just like the space. You know, you would move with ships if an army would intercept you, if they don't do ship battles, which would be a massive shame considering that ship battles have been totally missed in Total War lately. And I'm not just saying for fantasy, I'm saying in general, we need ship battles back. But without the case of ship battles, they could just do a little sea battle where armies just land on asteroid fields or a nearby planet, you know, that type of stuff. Maybe I'm reaching too much, but I'm remaining to keep hopeful. If anything, it's just shown us the battles are possible, and that's the most important thing. Things would be a bit different, obviously, if there were Tyranids involved, Necrons, and Space Marines, but the framework, it seems to be there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion, because I'm rather curious to see what you guys think about all this.